In this video, I want to talk about usability and usability testing. Usability provides you with an objective measure of a product's ability to serve its intended audience, and it offers insights into how you can improve the thing that you're testing. If you don't usability test, basically, your first usability test is when your website gets out into the world, and you hope you haven't made some big mistakes there and accidentally caused confusion. One of the reasons why usability testing is so important is when you participate in a website design process, you get fully immersed in the discussions about why the design is like this and why it's not like that and why you've moved things around. So actually, you are so well briefed on the design that you lose the capacity to understand what it will be like to use your website for the first time. Now, the great thing about usability testing is it provides you with a way of measuring how understandable, how usable your website is. It's important to note that it is an objective measure. It is not about people's opinions. So in usability testing, you're looking for a 100% pass rate. I'm just going to talk for a second about mental models and why they are important to understand. One of the difficulties that you have in creating a website is that you have an organisational mental model. You have a way of thinking about the information that is part of your professional skill and capability. And you will have acronyms that you use because your colleagues understand them and they speed up the discourse. They make it easier to do things. They're efficient. The problem is those acronyms and forms of jargon and ways of thinking that make you more effective within the organisation are precisely the things that make your website obscure to people in the outside world. So audiences come with very specific questions and mental models that do not match your organisation mental models. And this is where usability testing is such a great way to make sure that what you put out to the world actually speaks to the audiences that you need to speak to in language that they understand and in ways that really help them. So how is it done? Basically, with usability testing, you have to gather a small number of people, and 5 people is sufficient for rigorous usability testing. You do not need big sample sizes. So you gather together a small group of people representing your target audience, and you ask them to do the tasks that you want them to be able to do with your website. Testing is done one-on-one with one test subject at a time, one audience member at a time. But basically, you want a usability test facilitator who sits with the audience member and an observer who sits quietly in a corner and just takes some notes. You can record usability testing sessions, except again, it can make the people who are helping you, the audience members, feel uneasy because they feel, oh, Lord, you know, am I looking silly or sounding silly on this video or on this audio recording? So in many ways, I prefer to do it in the really, you know, low-tech way of having an observer with a pencil and paper. The process that you go through, you need to have defined what your usability tasks are, and they should come out of your design goals and your design thinking. And I've talked about design thinking in another video. So the test facilitator welcomes the audience member and explains that the purpose of the test is not an exam to see if they're smart. The purpose of the test is to see if the website is fit for purpose, if it serves them well. You need to ensure that the tester is happy to proceed and that they really do understand that they are in control of the session, and if they start to feel as though they're uncomfortable or they want want to stop doing the testing process, that is entirely their prerogative, that in fact they are in the driving seat. You need to ask each tester to do the usability tasks one by one and encourage the tester to think aloud. Now, this is part of the process that I love, because people really get into it and they start, musing, and you hear snippets of their life and their thoughts and their philosophies and so on. And the fabulous thing is, they become contributors to your design process in a really generous and humane way. And the wonderful thing about this testing process is, because you're sitting with them, you see them hesitate. You've asked them to do a task that, because you've been part of the design team, for you, it's blindingly obvious. It's that button over there in the corner. It's blue, it's large, it's got an obvious title to it. And you see them, they're looking around the screen. I've been asked to do this task. Where do I go? That is pure gold. And so then you start asking them, okay, so what are you looking for? And then they'll start to talk about the kind of wording they're expecting, or what they're expecting it to look like, or where they're expecting it to be. And one of the things that you have to do as a test facilitator is you have to be incredibly self-controlled. You must not give them hints or clues. Basically, what you do is you let them struggle for a bit if they're not succeeding in a task. And obviously, after a while, if they're simply not going to get there, you stop that particular task and then explain to them, okay, what we were thinking. And then you get them to respond to, well, here's what we actually presented. We're really interested that wasn't something that communicated to you. And then they'll start reflecting again, oh, gee, well, I'd never thought of it being called that. Or, oh, well, it was kind of hidden because there's a really colourful picture beside it. They will give you all sorts of fantastic design feedback that helps you tune up what you are making. The reason why it's important to have an observer in this process is because if you are conducting the usability test, you'll be totally focused on the person. You don't actually have time to write notes and stuff like that. That's where the observer can come in. And what you want them to do is to capture those golden quotes, the fabulous things that people say as they're going through, that really shine a light on a design issue or a usability issue with your website. What you do need to do, though, as the person facilitating the test, is you need to keep the score. And the score is, did they achieve the test task first time? Did they hesitate? Did they have to have a couple of goes? Did they, in fact, fail to fulfill the task? Those scores give you a very, very useful measure of how well each task is working. And then when you add those scores to the comments that the observer has noted down, you can go back to your design team and you can really talk about these things and in a meaningful way and say, okay, tasks number 1 and 2, they went through fine. Task number 3, 2 out of our 5 test subjects just could not figure out how to do it. Another 2 of them took 3 goes, and the last one did it in 2 goes. So clearly we have a problem with this. We have to redesign it. In many cases, the comments that people will have made will have really given you the clues on how to redesign the task. But the ideal actually is to usability test your revised solution again. When you are usability testing, the test can take up to an hour. You don't want it to take longer than that. It's too tiring for people. So you'll have, maybe half a dozen or more tests. It takes a long time because you want the person to talk aloud, to think out loud. Between each test subject coming in, you want a further 15 minutes to add to the appointment so that you as the facilitator and the observer can consolidate your notes and just discuss what you've just seen and what your thoughts are, and make sure that you note those. As I stated previously, 5 is a good number for usability testing. You can do more, but really 5 is a very good practical number. You will start to see if people can perform tasks or not, if they do it easily, if they do things with some difficulty. The way you report your usability testing should be you report statistics, the number of attempts that people have made, the success rates. The other thing that's really handy is to ask the test subject to give a kind of 1 to 5. If 1 is really hard to use and 5 is really easy to use, where do you rate this test subject? So that you can, out of your small sample group, actually have some meaningful statistics that you can show to other people. In your report, you elaborate your report with the test subject comments and the recommendations for improvements, and where appropriate, storyboarding recommendations for adjustments to the interface or the process that you're trying to mediate through the website. Now, you can actually do this kind of usability testing very inexpensively. Within my organisation, we have a form of usability testing which we call M&Fs, which is our desperate bare minimum of usability testing. And M&Fs is mums and friends. In other words, we don't have the budget to go out, gather specific audience members, but we can at least test with, relations and friends and see if the instinctive usability of our website is good. I should note that mums and friends are a great way to test something if it's a sort of general public kind of thing that you're building. If you're building something for a very, very specific audience, then you need to test with that specific audience. Usability testing provides you with an objective measure of how usable your website is, whether people can succeed in the tasks that you want them to fulfill through the website. If this has been helpful, please follow the link below to stay in touch, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.